When you're involved in a car accident, one of the most important legal concepts you need to understand is the statute of limitations. This is the legal deadline that determines how long you have to file a lawsuit after a car accident. If you miss this deadline, your right to seek compensation in court can be lost forever. The time limit varies depending on your state, and in many cases, it also depends on whether you're seeking damages for bodily injury, property damage, or both. The statute of limitations exists to ensure that legal disputes are resolved in a timely manner, while evidence is still fresh and witnesses' memories are clear. It's a safeguard for both the injured party and the accused. However, it's not a uniform rule across the United States. Each state sets its own deadlines, and these can range from as short as 1 year to as long as 10 years, depending on the type of claim. Let's start by breaking down what these claims mean. A bodily injury claim covers harm done to you physically in the accident. Things like medical expenses, lost wages, and pain and suffering. A property damage claim, on the other hand, deals with damage to your vehicle or personal property as a result of the accident. Some states give you more time to file for property damage than they do for bodily injury. In California, for example, you have 2 years to file a lawsuit for bodily injury, but 3 years for property damage. In New York, the statute is 3 years for both bodily injury and property damage. Florida recently changed its law, giving you 2 years to file for bodily injury, but a more generous 4 years for property damage claims. In Texas, both bodily injury and property damage cases have a 2-year statute of limitations. This means you must file your lawsuit within 2 years from the date of the accident, regardless of the type of damage you suffered. Some states allow significantly more time. New Jersey gives accident victims 6 years for both bodily injury and property damage. Missouri offers 5 years for both types of claims. Rhode Island provides 3 years for bodily injury, but an exceptional 10 years for property damage, one of the longest property damage windows in the country. Other states land somewhere in between. Ohio gives you 4 years for both injury and property damage. Oregon allows 2 years for bodily injury, but 6 years for property damage. Colorado's statute of limitations is 3 years for both types. In Georgia, you have 2 years for bodily injury and 4 years for property damage. Moving through the map, Arkansas gives you 3 years for both. In Alabama, Alaska, and Arizona, the deadline is 2 years across the board. Illinois has a 2-year limit for injury claims, but extends property damage cases to 5 years. Iowa's law is similar, with 2 years for injury and 5 years for property damage. Some states have much shorter time frames. Kentucky only allows 1 year for bodily injury claims and 2 years for property damage. Louisiana is even shorter, with 1 year for both types. Tennessee gives you just 1 year for bodily injury and 3 years for property damage. These short windows mean that accident victims in these states must act quickly to preserve their legal rights. On the other end of the spectrum, some states are far more lenient. Maine allows 6 years for both injury and property claims. North Dakota also gives 6 years for both. South Dakota has 3 years for injury, but 6 years for property damage. Wisconsin offers 3 years for injury and 6 for property damage. These longer timelines may seem like a relief, but it's still wise to act quickly, as evidence and witness availability can decline over time. Looking at other examples, Montana allows 3 years for bodily injury and 2 years for property damage. Nebraska gives you 4 years for each. Nevada provides 2 years for injury and 3 for property damage. New Mexico offers 3 years for injury and 4 for property damage. North Carolina, Vermont, and Washington all have 3 years for both injury and property damage claims. Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, and Mississippi each have a 3-year statute of limitations for both bodily injury and property damage. Virginia sets its limit at 2 years for injury, but 5 years for property damage. West Virginia requires both types of claims to be filed within 2 years. Utah has 4 years for injury and 3 for property damage. Wyoming gives 4 years for each. It's important to note that these deadlines are not absolute in every situation. In many states, the statute of limitations can be tolled or paused under certain circumstances. For example, if the injured person is a minor at the time of the accident, the countdown may not begin until they turn 18. If the defendant leaves the state or intentionally conceals their role in the accident, the statute may also be paused until they are located or the concealment ends. Some states also have discovery rules, which allow the clock to start when the injury is discovered rather than when the accident occurred. Another special consideration applies if you are filing a claim against a government entity, such as a city or state agency. These cases often have much shorter deadlines, sometimes requiring notice within just a few months of the accident. Failure to meet these early notice requirements can end your claim before it even starts. Why does the statute of limitations matter so much? Imagine you've been in an accident, but you decide to wait to see how your injuries progress. Perhaps months or years pass, and you finally decide to file a lawsuit. If you're past your state's statute of limitations, the court will almost certainly dismiss your case, no matter how strong your evidence is. Insurance companies know these deadlines well and will not negotiate a settlement if they know you're out of time to sue. The takeaway is clear. Know your state's laws and act quickly. Even in states with longer deadlines, filing sooner gives you the advantage of fresher evidence, more cooperative witnesses, and stronger negotiating power. To recap, statutes of limitations for car accident cases vary widely. States like Louisiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee give you as little as 1 year for bodily injury claims. Others, like Maine, North Dakota, and New Jersey, give you up to 6 years. Property damage claims often have slightly longer deadlines than injury claims in many states, but not always. No matter where you live, it's critical to mark your deadline immediately after the accident and seek legal guidance as soon as possible. A qualified personal injury attorney can help you determine the exact statute that applies to your case, identify any tolling exceptions, and ensure that you meet all filing requirements before time runs out. Your right to compensation after a car accident is too important to risk losing to a missed deadline. The statute of limitations is a hard legal boundary. Once it passes, your options are gone. Knowing your state's rules and acting promptly is the best way to protect yourself, your case, and your future.